But we haven't even tested it yet. There's so much we don't know.
It works beautifully. Come on, take a look.
Man, that intro is not going to feel the same whatsoever. Anyways, welcome back, true believers and all you spectacular Spidey fans, to another very interesting Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered related video. Now, even though this video could technically count as a 101 video, I think this is more of a discussion topic rather than a full-on news report. Even though the details we currently have here do analyze and inform a lot about a specific subject matter within the gaming industry as a whole, I do want to elaborate a bit further on some of these points, as well as simply showcase the perspective of one of the voice actors who have worked on the game. And shockingly, that voice actor is none other than Dr. Otto Octavius himself, of course being William Salyers. And just to reiterate one more time, is that Insomniac have recasted the main face model of Peter Parker from Spider-Man PS4 of John Bubniak with their newer face model in Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered of Ben Jordan to further obtain a more accurate portrayal of Yuri Lowenthal's voice acting performance as Peter Parker. Now granted, Yuri Lowenthal's amazing performance as Peter Parker within Spider-Man PS4 wasn't just simply through the use of voice acting, but he also took part within many moments of the game's motion capture. However, the same exact situation can be said for both John Bubniak and William Salyers. And to make that perfectly clear, I am going to be highlighting some very important moments from my own interview that I had with John Bubniak from E3 2018, where he did a magnificent job of fully breaking down his own personal involvement with helping bring Peter Parker to life within Spider-Man PS4. Because for anyone out there who simply thinks that John got his face scanned as Peter and called it a day, I'm here to tell you that there is a lot more to it than that. But essentially, this entire discussion topic occurred almost a week ago, where William Salyers himself went on Twitter to fully break down the situation occurring around Peter Parker's new face change. And trust me, while I do have a lot to say on the matter, I do want to completely read through William's thread first in order for you to all obtain a better perspective on the situation. Not only does William bring up some great points within this thread, but it's also a great way for us to obtain some insight as to exactly how the development process was for Spider-Man PS4 as a whole. And to begin, he did go on to state saying, "Thread, the president has COVID-19, the world is on fire, and I'm feeling salty, so I may as well say something that's been on my mind lately. The face model for a motion capture performance is just exactly that. A face model. Their part in the process is akin to the makeup a traditional stage actor wears, or a mask in other types of performance. Their faces are digitally grafted onto the actual actor who performs the scenes. In other words, they contribute to the role, but they do not play the role. Did you love Peter Parker in Marvel's Spider-Man for PS4? Me too. And that Peter Parker is Yuri Lowenthal. I'm not saying this as a fanboy, although I am a fan of Yuri's. I'm saying it as the actor who played opposite to him in the role of Otto Octavius. I've never met John Bubniak. I know his face was scanned, I know it was grafted onto Yuri's performance, I know he looked like a damn fine Peter Parker. But I would suggest that the Peter the players fell in love with, the one who wisecracked and questioned himself and swung literally back and forth between self-conscious nerd and coolest superhero ever, the one I performed all those scenes with was Yuri Lowenthal. This is the way the motion capture technology works. Some of us, like me and Stephen O'Young and Nancy Lenari, were lucky, in that our faces gave quote-unquote good data, as one animator put it, meaning we, with the faces we have, were sufficient to play our roles. Others were not in the same situation, and two actors, a face model and a performer, were necessary to play the part. Now please understand that I am not dismissing what John Bubniak brought, and what Ben Jordan will bring to the process. I'm simply saying that under both circumstances, 90% of Marvel's Spider-Man for PS4, and now I guess on PS5, was and always will be Yuri Lowenthal. You can say John Bubniak is your Peter Parker or Ben Jordan. As someone who worked closely on the game, I'd like to humbly suggest that in both cases, Yuri Lowenthal is your Peter Parker. And that's not gonna change, no matter whose face he's wearing. thank you for reading. Now again, I do have to give huge props to William Salyers for laying all of that on the table so that we as fans can fully understand the perspective that he is coming from. And while I do think William is making a lot of valid points, I still think that there is an extremely important factor he's not taking into consideration. I do think we can all agree that both William Salyers and Yuri Lowenthal's performances as both Otto Octavius and Peter Parker within Spider-Man PS4 is one of, if not the biggest highlights of the entire game, and made it that much more special for me when I was playing through it initially. The connection that both Peter and Otto have throughout the entirety of the game's narrative, while slowly seeing the descent of Otto becoming Dr. Octopus as the story progresses, is truly character development at its finest. Not to mention that some of the most emotionally impactful scenes that both Yuri and William were able to convey within the story were just simply outstanding. But again, one of the biggest factors that us as the gamer connected to the most was of course the visual performances of every single character within the game, especially with that of Peter Parker. The Peter Parker within Insomniac's universe is 23 years old, has just graduated college, and has spent his last 8 years as Spider-Man, meaning that this Peter Parker is a Spider-Man in his prime, and I do believe that John's overall aesthetic as Peter Parker within the game conveyed that perfectly. Whereas even though I have no personal qualms with the new face model of Ben Jordan whatsoever, the manner in which he's translated within the overall visual aesthetic in the PS5 remaster scene that we did watch previously makes him look a bit younger than what he actually is. But if you personally want to hear my entire thoughts on the whole Ben Jordan situation that I did discuss with my buddy Luke Cullen, I will leave a link to that video in the description below. Furthermore, John Bubniak himself did indicate that he actually had to physically act out lines from the script of Spider-Man PS4 in order to fully convey the most emotional version of Peter Parker that he could muster. This, of course, was obviously used as a way for the developers at Insomniac Games to gather facial data of John as Peter to use in their in-game model.
I guess I try to get myself into a mindset of like a situation similar that I've been into or something, and kind of just imagine that. And then like working with the directors, they're all like super helpful. And they kind of like get you there, and they tell you like what they feel and how they think Peter would be here. And it's just a kind of like a really like big team process, which is really helpful and really good.
I would be blown away seeing how you look like Peter in the game. You are Peter in real life, pretty much. And in a scenario where, I guess, with your acting capabilities, are there a lot of scenes that have you range out your acting from like dramatic moments and serious moments and lighthearted moments without spoiling?
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple scenes. I guess I don't know how much I could say. Maybe I guess with my aunt, there's a couple of scenes I guess I could say that get pretty emotional. So trying to get myself there is pretty. It was pretty hard, and we worked on that scene or those scenes for a couple hours, for a couple days. It was really I don't know. I didn't actually expect to get it. Like I didn't know any of the scenes going into it, and like when I got there to this part, so it was like all right, like I have to like quickly like get to this like emotional state. So I think that, and then like definitely stuff with Mary Jane is kind of like the opposite. So it's been like up and down of like all types of characters, I think.
And yes, while I am fully aware that we do spend a majority of the time within the game playing as Spider-Man instead of Peter Parker himself, Peter's character as a whole is still incredibly important to the overall story that the game tells. Yuri Lowenthal absolutely nailed his entire performance as Peter Parker vocally within Spider-Man PS4. However, for us as gamers, the main character that we are looking at the majority of the time is actually the overall design of John Bubniak. And again, at this point, after having played the game so many times and actually hearing Yuri Lowenthal's voice from John Bubniak's face, the two have now become synonymous, which for me personally is going to make it a lot harder to transition to Ben Jordan's face model onto this version of Peter Parker that I love so much, especially considering the fact that Insomniac are going to be using Ben Jordan's model going forward within the future of the Marvel's Spider-Man gaming franchise, with of course starting off with Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered, a possible cameo within Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, and obviously the inevitable future of Marvel's Spider-Man 2. So even though William Salyers is stating that Yuri Lowenthal's performance was front and center within all the emotional moments as Peter Parker, the main facial expressions that we're seeing in the game are mainly coming from John himself. Or at the very least, to make it more understandable, us as the players do see more of John Bubniak as this version of Peter Parker, but hear more of Yuri Lowenthal's emotion. But in both cases, we do heavily feel much more connected to them both equally. Although in this case, William Salyers wasn't the only one to comment on this entire situation, where just a couple days ago, the main voice actress who played Yuri Watanabe herself of Terra Platt did come in to survey the situation even more, where she did go on to reply to someone on Twitter by saying John Bubniak did not act out those scenes as part of the game. They initially had him perform some scenes, but those were scrapped, and none of his performance was a part of the game. It was only a head/face scan that was used as a render for all of Yuri's performance. And with the reply to follow coming from @AlwaysTheBestM, he did state they scrapped it. I for sure thought that all those emotions were real in the end of the game, like the expressions and everything. The ending just felt real from both parties. I guess I was wrong. My apologies. And to finalize this entire scenario, William did state those emotions were all real. I acted out the scene with Yuri. Bubniak's face was digitally mapped onto Yuri's body later, like makeup or a mask. That's something the technology allows. It's what I keep trying to explain to people. So basically, all of the emotional expressions that we do see coming off of Peter Parker within Spider-Man PS4 are actually being acted out by Yuri Lowenthal himself, and are pretty much copy and pasted onto the face model design of John Bubniak's character. But even if that might be the case, please don't try to discredit John's overall inclusion within Spider-Man PS4 entirely. Because again, after having interviewed him in E3 2018, he really put everything he had into making the best Peter Parker possible within this game's story. Not only did he act out the scene so that way the developers could gather facial data on John, but he also worked extremely close to them to see what would work best for Peter Parker in a certain situation that the story called for.
You post a picture of yourself in the motion capture gear, and you've worked previously in movies and TV. Did it take a while to get used to that? And did anyone walk you through how to actually use motion capture? Or?
I mean, we kind of just went into it. We go in, the process is pretty, it became easier, I guess. They put all the dots on, and they have a camera set up. And then at first it was kind of different because we do it in a couple different takes with different expressions. And it was kind of weird because you have to really make the expressions really specific.
Right.
So I think going from TV where everything's really subtle, it's kind of I guess it's a learning curve for sure.
Absolutely.
At first I was getting it, and the days go on, it becomes simpler, and then it became more fun to go in and just feel become Peter Parker and just have fun with it, I guess. So definitely was a learning curve.
I would absolutely think so, because just being able to see yourself in the game and try and get that acting capability as Peter must have been a real challenge. Is there anything else that was challenging trying to be Peter and just act in a certain way?
I think it's kind of funny, but I actually I think a lot of things that Peter goes through in the story, even in the movies, it's I kind of feel like that's happened to me, sort of. So it's kind of, I can connect to that, which is funny. But then I also think, hearing Yuri's voice, I have to match it up to his voice a lot, my mouth in some of the scenes. So that definitely took some time to learn. And I guess it was a little bit of a challenge, but then once I understood his rhythm, rhythmic type of speaking, I kind of it was a learning curve as well.
And let me tell you right now, even though Peter Parker's main character portrayed beautifully by Yuri Lowenthal is still going to stay the exact same within Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered, I will say that if you think that scenes like this,
You knew.
or this,
You were everything I wanted to be.
and even this, are going to convey the same exact emotional impact as to what we initially experienced when playing the game for the first time with John Bubniak's character model mixed with Yuri Lowenthal's vocal performance, then I do personally think that you are in for a rude awakening. Now, if you're someone who actually does like the new change of Peter Parker's face model, then more power to you. But for me personally, especially after having met John in person, I'm way too far attached to the version that we played of as Peter within Spider-Man PS4. And even though I am more than happy to actually be playing Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered once it does release, I'm letting you all know ahead of time that the overall emotional connection that I will have to those specific heavy scenes from the story will not hit as much for me on a personal level. But to wrap up this entire discussion, I do want to read some incredibly impactful statements coming from a brand new article discussing the overall situation of Peter Parker's character model from ScreenRant.com, where the article itself is titled PlayStation 5's Peter Parker design undercuts Spider-Man's established character. The reason redesigned Peter Parker of the PS5 Marvel Spider-Man Remaster fails the character, undercutting his pathos in favor of a false sense of youth. And even though Screen Rant isn't always known for the best articles that they do publish, I do think that these couple paragraphs that they do analyze do hit the point home heavily in a great way. So at the very end of the article, it does state, by making Peter look younger, the PS5 version of Marvel's Spider-Man diminishes the significance of Miles' relationship to Peter, as Miles is Peter's protege and inspiration. Miles helps Peter let go of his messianic sense of responsibility and accept the help of others, while also giving Peter a reflective mirror of his younger self. Through Miles, Peter gets the chance to grow further into his role as an adult, mentoring a new generation of superheroes. But now, with Peter's new look, they look like peers. While it's true that Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered contains the same writing, same acting, same gameplay, and same story, along with improved graphics, the experience will be lesser. The change to Peter Parker's character may seem superficial, as it is just a face after all, but the alteration is significant, for it adds dissonance where there was once harmony. The entirety of Marvel's Spider-Man is built around an aging Peter Parker, a man who must learn to accept his limitations, both physical and emotional, while finding hope in the next generation. Peter's original face echoed the reality of his experience and reinforced his relatability. However, the new face eschews his pain under the guise of eternal youth, and in doing so, it belies the soul underneath. Again, I am still very curious to see exactly how Ben Jordan's facial performance will differ from John Bubniak, but given how incredibly special this game is to me, I'm never not going to unsee Yuri Lowenthal and John Bubniak together forming the one and only version of Peter Parker that I hold most dear. Still, I can only hope for the best possible outcome of Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered once it does release worldwide on November 12th. And with all that said, everyone, that's the video I have for you today, and please let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. What do you think about this entire situation regarding John Bubniak's involvement as Peter Parker within Spider-Man PS4, and do you agree or disagree with William Salyers' statements? I am absolutely enthralled with everything that Yuri Lowenthal brought to the character of Peter Parker, but again, it was also heavily carried with the inclusion of John Bubniak's facial performance. And even though we haven't seen those emotional scenes yet of Ben Jordan's character model in action as Peter Parker, I'm still letting you all know right now that it's just not going to feel the same for me. But until next time, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. Stay spectacular, Spidey fans. Feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy, and without further ado, peace out.
One final question I have for you, because you've been so amazing. What do you have to say for the fans that are excited about the game, and for mainly who are excited about the Peter Parker aspect about the game?
I'm just super thankful that everyone's been so supportive, and because it's weird, yeah, I mean, you never know how people are going to react, but I'm just super happy to have, like, it feels like a family, and, like, everyone's there, and, like, we're all in this together, if it wasn't for you guys, or I wouldn't be here, you know what I mean? So it feels really good to have, like, this group of people that I can surround myself with and keep a part of me and everything, you know?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's great meeting you.
You're absolutely awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much for watching, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Stay spectacular, Spidey fans. Peace out.